Welcome back. Well, just to update you, Gift Nifty suggesting that after yesterday's good run, we have another bump up that we're bracing for. Maybe another 70 to 80 point uptake is what we're looking forward to. But plenty of stocks to analyze. And Nischal Maheshwari, CEO, Institutional Equities and Advisory at Centrum Broking, joins us on the show. Hi, Nischal. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining in. Well, Nischal, we'll talk about Reliance in just a bit. I wanted to ask you about these cement companies. You know, we had a price increase of 35 rupees at the start of September. And 10 days on, we're having another price increase out there. Now, it's, normally during monsoon, we don't normally see price increases. But this time around, things are moving well for them. Demand is strong. Price increases coming about. Input costs cooling off. Your pick from the cement space.
Morning, Nigel. We have seen this first price increase. So what's happened basically because of a weak September monsoon, weak August monsoon, we saw some price increases happening. But our information gathering on the ground basically doesn't seem to be suggesting that these price increases have been taken by the trade. So trade is saying basically, yes, there has been some price increases which have been taken by the companies, but it is not being passed on to the ground. So there is no demand at the higher prices. So I don't know basically if there is going to be another price hike happening. First price hike was there basically, which has not been accepted by the trade also. I think the second one seems to be a far cry.
Nischal, actually the price increase that we're talking about is particularly in East India. You know, at select markets, it wasn't absorbed, but I think most of the price increase that was taken on September 1st, particularly in East India, it's being absorbed. So now your take. You know, there are three stocks basically that has big exposure out there. There's Nuvoco, that has been a rank underperformer. Dalmia Bharat, that has been doing the right things. And Shree Cement as well has some exposure. So among the three, do you like any of them or do you think the good news is already in the price?
So I just wanted to highlight on East India only, basically because it was not on, West India didn't take any price hikes. The only hikes which happened, significant hikes happened was on the East India. And the East India trade, I was telling you basically that the trade tells us basically that it's not being absorbed on the ground. So there is no demand at higher prices. That's what I was trying to highlight. Among the three, basically, yes, we like Nuvoco out there as a topic. Shree Cement, at the moment, we are a bit more ambivalent towards it, but our topic remains to be Nuvoco there.
Okay. Nischal, hi, good morning. This is really a great time to be invested in the market, right, with the Nifty at 20,000. But what do you do from here on? If you have big gains in mid caps and small caps, has the time come to take a bit of profit? Or do you think that this has a longer runway?
So, morning, Sonia. So I believe that there is a longer runway here, but there would be, I think, some sort of a correction happening, especially in the mid cap and small cap space, because I think it has run away quite a bit, basically ahead of the fundamentals. I think that's pretty evident. Basically, you speak to anybody, any expert on the market, he would be telling the same thing. But I still continue to believe that there is no significant correction is going to happen. Maybe another something like a 4-5% kind of a correction, basically most likely to happen. And there is a strong undercurrent in the market, both in terms of flows as well as in the fundamentals. The first quarter earnings was strong. Basically, if you look at the consensus, there is more than a 15% CAGR growth for the next 2 years. I think these two things will continue to keep the market buoyant. But now I think is the time to actually move away from small and mid caps and go into the large caps.
And actually, we spoke with, Nilesh Shah yesterday when the Nifty hit 20,000. It was a very interesting chat. We had Sunil Singhania. These are all veterans. Vijay Kedia was on, and they were all making the same point, Nischal, morning, that maybe time to kind of look at large caps, right? If you've made money, lock in gains, at least some gains, and top off the the 15-20%, and then move that into large caps. Can't hurt. The biggest sector is financials, Nischal, there. 37-38% weight in the Nifty is financials. And that also came up as one of the sector's best positioned, best placed. Do you agree, Nischal? And what would you like? What do you like in that space, financials?
Morning, Prashant. I agree with that. Basically, I think the numbers were quite strong in the first quarter, basically in the financial side. if you look at it in the financial space at the moment, it's like a Goldilocks scenario. But there are some signals on the horizon, basically, which might worry us. I'm saying growth on the personal loans is almost 45% for this first 5 or 6 months in the current year. So that one should be worried about. The second thing, which we recently did a quick analysis and visited some of the branches of MFI, small finance banks, and we found out basically that almost 60 to 70% of the loans which are being given out are for personal consumption. It is not business loans. So I think somewhere that we need to keep in mind, basically, that it's largely consumption loans because of inflation. That's why you are seeing this kind of loan growth. Having said that, I think our preferences still remain to be the small finance banks. Growths are very strong, basically, at the moment, and at least I think for the next 2 or 3 quarters, we are going to continuously see improvement both on the growth side as well as on the return side. When I say returns, I mean return on capital. So ROC and ROCs basically will keep on improving for them. So that's why I believe basically that space is good to look at.
Okay. Nischal, just stay on. We'll come back to you in a bit. We have many more questions for you. But Nischal, I wanted your thoughts on this because, you know, as Prakash was also saying, the important bit here is that this is KKR's follow-on investment. And KKR had earlier invested in Reliance Retail in 2020 at half the equity value. So, you know, that's quite substantial. They're now raising their stake. The stake will now be at about 1.5%, 1.42% in Reliance Retail. What is your sum of the parts for Reliance? Because, you know, do you see this underperformance of the stock end here because of the kind of investments we're getting? And what does the risk reward look like for investors now?
So I think the biggest value in Reliance is basically, we have seen in case of Jio, basically, the split actually created value for the investors. So I think that is going to be the biggest trigger for Reliance, as in when I think the company decides that they are going to list the entity separately, you're going to see massive unlocking of value. We at this stage have a target price around 27.50 for Reliance. But obviously, I think as and when we get more clarity, especially on the retail front, that how they are looking at various businesses within the retail space, I think more evaluation would be unlocked.
Just a quick, Nischal is still with us, and I think we're at the beginning of the pre-open session. On your screens, the Nifty is up 70, the Sensex will settle down 100 on the Sensex, 70 on the Nifty. The rupee is opening, I think, stronger. That's a full 7-8 paise stronger as compared to yesterday's close from 83. It's you know, become a little. It's opening higher as compared to the USD. The dollar was lower by about 0.25% last night. The dollar index, that is. Nischal, you know, so you know what is done very well is cyclicals, right? And some of these are really deep cyclicals which have come back into the limelight. I mean, railways, for example, you know, defense as a space has done very well. Power lately has come into the mix. And we'll put out, by the way, a brokerage call on BHEL in just a bit from now. But anything which stands out to you from sort of these 3 areas that I mentioned that you have coverage on, that you or otherwise where you think maybe things have gotten a little overdone?
So I think all these spaces have actually surprised everybody. At least I think most of the people I've been speaking to and the funds, I think the performance has been phenomenal, actually. And I think most of us have been caught underweight on these sectors. But what I see here is basically power is one, basically, which is still got some way to go. There is a shortage of power, basically. And what we've seen here is that the production or the new plants are, I'm saying, some time off to come into the whole thing. So we definitely see a good upside on the power side, especially given that the demand is very strong and we do not have the immediate supply of that. So that is one sector, basically, we are positive about. But obviously, I think other 2 sectors also done very well. Defense seems to be now played out its full role, because I think, yes, there are a lot of orders out there, but I think the execution has been the key, basically, for defense. And historically, we've seen, I think there has been some disappointment as far as executions are concerned. So one should be cautious now for defense. But I think railways and power seems to be on track.
Actually, the defense space, and we'll talk about that in greater detail. I take your point completely because this morning there are some downgrades. Axis Cap has actually downgraded BEL, and they say that they make the exact same point that valuations are just way out of the comfort zone now. But Nischal, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us on CNBC TV 18.